It's a pleasure to be speaking to a friend, Mahmud Mohamed, the CEO and MD of Serena Hotels. Serena Hotels is not only in Africa but also in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and now Mahmud was just mentioning another hotel in France as well. Mahmud, it's a great pleasure. You're the eminence grise of the tourism industry. We've known each other when I was a little boy, and you were managing Mombasa, which I still remind people about. Yes. Mahmud, you know, this is an opportunity for us to just take a view on where we are in the tourism industry in this region. Obviously, we've had some serious challenges. How would you characterize the situation as we find it now?
I think in terms of, if I talk East Africa, we obviously, Kenya has faced a very challenging 2.5 years. And I think a lot of people assume that the challenges Kenya is facing is due to the recent advisories. But to be honest, last year was a tough year because we had elections and there was a lot of hype, negative media reports before and after elections. Then unfortunately we had the Westgate attack, which also did not help. And I kept saying at that time that the Westgate attack would impact the year 2014. So we were already going to be facing a challenging year 2014. Unfortunately, the advisories in 2014 have really been the final nail in the coffin. So for Kenya, it's been a challenging year. On a positive note, however, even last year, during the migration season, the Americans continued to come. So I think that
they've been coming even now?
Oh yes, and they have supported Kenya in year 2013 and 2014 from middle of July, and we hope it's going to continue till October. So properties in the Mara and the Nakuru-Laikipia region are actually at this moment in time doing well after a tough first 6 months. I think the real negative impact has been felt on the Kenya coast,
yes,
and Mombasa is really going through a very tough time. And we should not forget that parks like Savo and Amboseli are both very reliant on the Mombasa market. I think, you know, one should also not forget that coastal tourists also go to the Mara and Mount Kenya region. So that has been a very tough blow on Kenya. On Tanzania, for the first time, or the first 6 months, we did see a little downturn, and the reason was, there were 3 reasons basically. One was the fact that the number of safaris were a combination of Kenya and Tanzania. So as soon as people saw Kenya, they did not book those integrated safaris. Fortunately, we took proactive action, and that changed for the second half of the year. And from July, Tanzania is actually recording solid business. The other reason that I think safari in East Africa took a hit was the fact that the South African rand weakened by 30%, and they contract their tourism product in their currency. So effectively, you know, they became 30% cheaper. So that was, you know, another reason why East Africa did go through a tough time. I think the third reason was, which was very Kenya related, was in September last year, government imposed 18% VAT on tourism services, yes, which affected tour operators, and very unfortunately on park entrance fees. So to give you a real example, the Serengeti charges $60 park entry fee, and Amboseli charges $90.
So we're priced very poorly.
Very poorly, and you know, unfortunately, and this is what we've pointed out to government, EU regulations do not empower tour operators to charge levies and taxes once they've sold a holiday without giving, I think it's 6 months notice to the client.
So these costs can't be passed through?
No, so they have absorbed them. And what happens then is that, suppliers of business then say, well, I'm not going to lose $30 per client per day, and I'm going to offer an alternative destination. And to me, this was an incorrect move. Even if he wanted to do it, there should have been a notice period, and perhaps that would have been received, well. Tanzania, on the other hand, because of the East African community, also were to impose the same. And as soon as they gauged feedback from major suppliers of business, they have suspended introduction of VAT.
So they reacted quickly?
Very quickly. They didn't even implement it. They had it on paper. It was approved by Parliament. The industry reacted, like we did in Kenya. And it was debated again in Parliament. And the last decision was about 3 months ago, where they said, okay, let's suspend it till the end of this year, and we will relook at it. So I think, those three reasons, it's not just the recent advisories and the so-called evacuation of British tourists.
Which, was that an evacuation? I mean, it came under a lot of sort of reinterpretation. The High Commissioner told me that was a decision made by the tour operators who were unable to insure the tourists in Mombasa at that time. Is that correct?
That's what the tour operators claim, but it is true. It wasn't a British government requirement. If you ask me, I think it was more a commercial decision because they were unable to sell their charters. They were losing money on the charters flying into Mombasa. This was a perfect way of them disengaging from the charter commitment under force majeure.
Interesting.
So, in my opinion, it was a commercial decision because it's never happened before. The insurance of the clients who were there was still valid. And for them to evacuate sent a very incorrect message.
Which was actually spun very incorrectly. It was sort of set off a lot of panic. So East Africa perspective, coastal tourism, obviously the soft underbelly of it all, it seems to be what you're telling me. When does that recover in the most optimistic scenario?
I think my feeling, by the way, one other factor that is important to note is that we also have presence in East African cities. So we do have a fairly strong corporate market. And, on the corporate front, for example, our Nairobi hotel for the last 6 months has done pretty well. So there is a fair amount of corporate activity.
Is that continuing? Is that robust? Is that continuing?
There's been a slight softening in the recent past for Nairobi hotels.
Mahmud, there's all this excitement about Kenya being the gateway, the hub. Are you seeing that translate into beds in Nairobi, for example?
There's been a lot of hype. If you look at Nairobi, there is no doubt that the market has grown, but it is not growing at the same pace as supply of new rooms.
Because there's been a lot of supply now.
Yes, and there has been a lot of supply. And if you look at some other hotels in the central business district, for example, they have recorded occupancies of between 35–40%, which is of concern. So there is this hype that has been created, and there are more rooms coming into Nairobi. And I do worry that supply of business is not keeping pace with the overdevelopment. We should not forget that Mombasa went through a similar situation where after 2 boom years, everybody built hotels. And we got into a situation where we created an oversupply. We became a charter-reliant destination. And you know, sometimes I think the media in Kenya gets it wrong. I'm amazed that they keep talking about international brands coming into Kenya, which is a indication of how robust this market is. Well, with the greatest respects to the international brands, they are only management companies. The developers are local Kenyan entrepreneurs
who are putting their money to work. Yeah.
And for a management company, I also have management projects, management contracts. We will not necessarily just take any project, and if I did that, I would have troubled the size of my company. We will only take management contracts of properties that are strategically important and that we truly believe we can make a success. So, you know, when international brands come in here, the day they sign a management contract, that's the day they start earning money. It is not because they're not putting any money in.
They haven't got the real skin in the game, like you have.
Absolutely. So, you know, so Nairobi, I think, you know, whilst for us, and I think for a select number of other hotels that have done well, but we see that softening. And, you know, don't forget that it's not just the corporate market that Nairobi is reliant on. We have the conference, the meeting market, and when there are advisories,
it puts everyone off.
Those conferences and meetings go out of the window. If you have business here, or you're working on a contract here, you will come regardless of advisories or not, because business continues. But when you have conferences, we've had recent examples where a conference from Nairobi was moved to Dar es Salaam. We had one 2 months ago where a conference from Nairobi was moved to Kigali, and this is real.
And Kigali, so just if I can just follow on from there, where can this business transfer? You know, is there a risk, like you're describing, going to Dar? Who is best positioned to pick up the pieces in the region, do you think, if anyone?
I think certainly in terms of NGOs and where there are diplomatic meetings or funded by foreign governments, I think Kigali certainly enjoys a lot of goodwill. So Kigali is a beneficiary.
Yes.
And this year we've had a record 6 months.
Because I was there 2 weeks ago and I stayed in your hotel and I noticed two things. A convention center which looked to me very modern, and then the security, Mahmud.
Oh,
I mean, I walked back to the hotel at 2 a.m.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was just as if I was out in the street in a Western city.
Yes.
So that sort of made me really think.
And Uganda,
Yes.
Kampala is also perceived and is a very secure city. So Kampala is another recipient. Dar es Salaam, and we've had some business move, so there is that danger. Obviously, we should not forget that in some cases, you know, we are in an international arena, so Johannesburg, Dubai can all be recipients of that business. So I think in terms of Nairobi, you know, things are fine. You know, it's still positive. I must also mention that whilst there has been a serious drop in the European leisure market, because they used to come and really support hotels over weekends when traditionally our business is very low, because the corporate market doesn't travel or they travel out. Our peak days are are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, Saturday, all the hotels in Nairobi take a dip. And we used to rely on the leisure market. But in some cases, because of perception, they are bypassing Nairobi. In some cases, if they're going into Tanzania, they'll arrive at Jomo Kenyatta, go straight to Wilson and fly out. In some cases, I think the recipients are Naivasha and towns that are closer to Nairobi, and they start off their safari immediately from Jomo Kenyatta.
Mahmud, coming to the Serena hotels, right? I mean, you are a diversified hotel group. You've got hotels, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, your magnificent hotel, which I adore, which is in Maputo, which one day I hope will also be part of the listed company. So, this diversification surely gives you some strength in such an environment, does it not?
Absolutely. And, good example, and I forget, when we first integrated Tanzania into Kenya, I think it was 2009, when Kenya went through a tough time, and Tanzania performed. 2010, it was reversed. Kenya performed, and Tanzania went through a little bit of a tough period. So, the fact that the public company today owns 100% of Tanzania, Kenya, Dar es Salaam, which is our new acquisition, we only invested 20% in Dar es Salaam because we wanted to be mature before we integrated. Last year we integrated 65% of Kampala into the public company, which is helping us significantly now. Rwanda, we own 20% of Rwanda. I think in a 3 to 5 year span, our objective is to integrate Uganda fully, Rwanda fully, Dar es Salaam perhaps partly, and eventually Polana, which is also going through some redevelopment. We're doing some real estate development
Are
there.
you?
Yeah.
You're building on the property?
No, well, we've got a lot of land there,
Yes.
and we already have some villas that that are in serious demand.
Yes.
So we are adding to that.
Wow.
And we are also going to be redoing the rooms in the Polana Mar. So there's quite a lot happening. And as soon as those companies are mature, we will integrate them into the public company. So that strategy has worked for us.
Geographically, any other places you're looking at?
We have a project in Burundi, which we won a tender for what is the hotel Source du Nil. And I've been in discussions with government, and I think they have accepted our condition that we would only invest in the property after their elections in June 2015.
Yes, a little bit of uncertainty
Yes.
around that.
So Burundi we're looking at. We have inquiries at the moment from 1 or 2 developers in Addis Ababa. We're looking
Which a lot of people are getting excited about.
Yes,
Particularly the business people I speak to.
Yes. And as I said earlier, we are not necessarily just a management company. We are long-term players.
Yes.
And we like to, unlike some of the international brands who will not invest equity in a project, only manage. And that's why you sometimes see a number of these management contracts changing hands.
Yes.
We've seen that a number of in East Africa. We'd like to take an equity stake, so that also, we make sure that we do all the due diligence because we can't afford not to. And that property has to be strategically important for us and will contribute positively to the public company. And a good example is Kampala today. It's giving us handsome returns. Rwanda, I think eventually will do the same.
So let me now go to the results, your half-year results. When I looked at them, I was quite impressed because I think your revenues were down really marginally. You had a 7 billion handle on both the previous year and this year. Of course, the profit came down, but I mean, the headline figure, I think, veiled a pretty muscular performance, I thought, given the circumstances. How do you feel about the chain right now in this situation, and about those results you posted, and looking forward on the earnings side?
I think, we have over many years demonstrated that we are not just looking at short-term results. We are long-term players. We are here to stay. And for example, I could have improved my 6-month performance if I had put, for example, some of our capital projects or its essential maintenance during a downturn period on the back burner. We could have perhaps had a knee-jerk reaction and panicked and made people redundant. We don't do that. We believe that our company must be built to last. And a good example is over the last 12 months, when Kenya has been through a tough period, we have done significant works. In this hotel, for example, we have done and rehabilitated the public areas at Serena. We've put in a spa and a gym. We've redone suite waters. We're continuing with our bedroom upgrade in Mombasa. We've started our phased bedroom upgrade of our Tanzanian properties. So I think, what we have done is we believe we've got to have a built to last company, which should not have surprises. A number of other companies I know of, not in East Africa, but in Europe, US, have been through tough times, and they cut out essential costs, and then shareholders are faced with surprises 2-3 years down the line. So that was that is one thing that's important to note. I think if you look at our financials, they're very healthy.
Very.
What
was your debt to UK?
It was 18%. 18.
So it's not a leveraged balance sheet at all.
No. In fact, very under leveraged.
Yes.
Very under leveraged. So I think we don't have, fortunately, banks breathing down our necks.
Yes.
We have managed our financials responsibly. We also have a pretty good treasury management within East Africa or Eastern Africa. And I think also, this issue about staff, for example, yes, we've been through many downturns in East Africa, and we've always believed that shouldn't be the first stop.
Yes.
I think, the cost of re-employing them 2 years down the line, and this destination will bounce back. Kenya is resilient. It is a great destination. It's good value for money. And I think people are not coming to Kenya because they are not happy with the product or don't find it a value for money destination. It is perception of security. So I think, bearing in mind what you said earlier, I am certainly very satisfied with the results. Yes, it's painful because, through no fault of ours and issues beyond our control, we could have done a lot better. But I think our board is very supportive, and they believe in looking at the long term rather than, trying to get into a panic situation and defend short-term results which come and hit you in the face 2-3 years down the line.
Sure. I must come back and give you a compliment regarding the staff retention that you're talking about. Is that I've been, since I was a young boy, and you were in the Serena, Mombasa, and visited all your hotels, and wherever I go, I find your staff have been there for a long period of time, and I think that's a tremendous testament to the organization and your leadership. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
The other thing, in business is we find what's called flight to quality. When, in the insurance business, lots of claims, they don't get paid, all of a sudden people go to the stronger businesses because they know that in an event of a problem, they're going to get paid out in the insurance company. Now, given the nature of the hotel the composition of ownership of the hotel business in East Africa and in Kenya. Is there a risk of a flight to quality? Because I've stayed in a lot of hotels with just single mono units, monoline units. These guys are surely really feeling the pressure now. Do you perceive that because the lead time for a holiday is like 12 months forward? Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity here, an advantage that's going to play in your favor, in the sense that people will have to look and see that operator will be there in 1 or 2 years' time?
Oh, we've already seen that. For year 2015 and 16, we've seen a number of operators who perhaps in the past reduced their business dealings with us because they were getting cheaper deals elsewhere. And we are seeing that those suppliers of business have come back to us. And I've been in touch with them saying, what is driving you back? And I think their honest answer is, we know that you are there to stay.
Yes.
Don't forget, they're publishing a catalogue and featuring a destination or hotels or lodges costs a lot of money. And if they had an itinerary which was a Serena itinerary and Serena did not exist 2 years down the line, that is waste of money. So I think we have seen a flight back to us, and I'm sure there may be others too, who have demonstrated that come good or bad times, they will be here. And Kenya, without, if you look at it, we've seen, for example, blocks to Lonro, to Fairmont, for example. We've seen the demise of AT&H. We then saw a number of other operators, Signet and others who came in, and they're not there. And I think, the fact that we have been here 35 years, we've been through tough and good times, we're still here, and we hope we'll be here for another 100 years. So yeah, I think there is, we are already seeing that. And that is one other reason why, today, if I look at it strictly commercially, on commercial terms, I'd be better off closing down the hotel in Mombasa and my lodge in Savo. I would have increased my profits for the 6 months because we are carrying 2 or 3 of these properties. But I think that's where you send a message saying we may be there. I think the message to our suppliers of business is, whether we're running at 20% occupancy or not, we are going to be there. And during this period, we are not cutting standards. We are not sacrificing the quality of our property standards or maintenance. And we still have our staff. So I think, that is always sometimes difficult for people to understand. But we will not, certainly under my leadership and our board of directors, we will not try and, just improve results for the short term at the expense of the long term. I think that would be being irresponsible to our thousands of shareholders. We've got to make sure that we are built to last, we're sustainable, and we have no shocks or surprises for them.
Do you think the current share price is reflecting the value of the business? Because I did my maths, and just the net asset value, in my view, was considerably higher. And I just think sometimes, because you're the only tourism-related equity at the stock exchange, it's like a knee-jerk reaction that if the macro tourism picture is not that great, the only way people can express it is via your share. Am I wrong, or am I?
No, you're absolutely right. Sometimes I'm amazed that, with the movements in share prices on the stock exchange, I was looking at some figures recently. There was one bank that declares a dividend which is at our level.
Yes.
But their share price is 5 times ours, you
Yes.
know, and I say to myself, I think perhaps that and the fact that we do not have that many, there's not much liquidity on our shares,
That's right.
which also
It
does not
doesn't
help.
trade that much. Yes. They're
And-
closely held.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that's a good sign as well.
yeah.
It means people are.
and you know, when I obviously track the sales and buyers, and what is comforting to see is that those who are selling, the buyers are existing shareholders.
So they're continuing to add to their
Yes,
positions.
and they've been with us right from day one, which demonstrates, you know, that they have confidence in the company. So I think, yeah, sometimes the NSE movements in share prices are a
Random.
little, yes. But you know,
That's the opportunity for someone like me when they get very random.
yes, yes.
Mahmud, looking forward,
Mhm.
all this experience, tough time right now, but let's look out a year, 2, 3 years down the road. What do you see for this business, for the tourism industry in this part of the world, where you have placed such a big bet, essentially?
I look at our future being very bright. You know, our natural resources. You look at our weather,
That's very. I'm optimistic about those natural resources, by the way.
our location. We feel very confident. I think, you know, one has to obviously make sure that, you know, we continue to lobby government to give tourism the priority it deserves. I think sometimes, unfortunately, whether it's the private sector not being able to communicate the real message to government, you know, but there is sometimes the feeling that it is not given the priority it deserves. We are working at it.
Yes. The World Bank said 1 in 20 jobs in Africa is created out of
Absolutely.
tourism. So
Yes.
12.5% of our GDP.
Yes, and I think this current downturn, in my opinion, I think come September, October,
Yes.
I think the real impact will be felt,
Yes.
whether it's statutory contributions from tourism, VAT, training levy. I keep in very close touch with manufacturers, with other industries
Yes.
that have huge fallout benefits from tourism. And I can tell you they are suffering. So I think the message will get home very quickly, in my opinion, in the next couple of months.
Yes.
And hopefully we can get this security situation sorted out. My own view is that, you know, the Western world has not been too, you know, very fair with Kenya.
Do you agree with what Richard Branson's been saying?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And what His Excellency the President said
Yes.
in the US.
Yes.
I was delighted with his comments because yes, this is one time when we need their support.
Yes.
And I think one other thing that we must remember, whilst the 2 recent deaths in Mombasa,
Yes.
were
Which,
very
by the way,
fortunate.
Mahmud, you know, I'm 49, I'm from Mombasa. I've never heard of these types of events.
Absolutely, I've never ever seen such incidents. They were isolated. But if you actually go into a website called Tourists Killed,
Yes.
you will see that Kenya's record is better than Tanzania, Zanzibar,
Yes.
Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, the Bahamas.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that there is any excuse for what happened recently,
Yes.
but my own feeling is that perhaps our reaction to all the incidents was not proactive and not professional. I have said to government that the first thing we should do is to appoint an international PR firm.
Yes.
To
I was
manage.
going to ask you about that because at times our PR is so crass.
And it's all reactive.
Yes.
You can't have, reactive PR when it comes to tourist destinations. So if we, if you ask me, I think the future is bright, provided we learn from these mistakes, action is taken, and I think action is being taken. The recent comments by the president in the US, I think, are comforting, because they are talking to our international partners for assistance. And, you know,
We need that assistance, I
yes,
think. That's the lesson, right?
I think one other reason why I feel reasonably confident is that, you know, we've still got the Asian factor.
Yes.
The Chinese numbers are not big,
No.
or the numbers out of the Far East,
Yes.
but they're growing.
They're growing, are they?
Oh, yeah.
Are you seeing it come through here?
Oh yes, oh yes. And I think we should not underestimate the African market.
The intra-African market.
It is amazing. We have seen a real increase there.
Yes.
The numbers do not compensate
Yes.
for the loss out of UK and Europe,
Yes.
because though, you know, there's a long way to go, but those markets are growing. So, you know, and when Europe and UK bounce back, and we have the additional, you know, the Asian market, and we've got the African market growing, you know, Kenya has to bounce back.
My final question is, like, looking over tourism over this period, what are the big new trends that you think you're seeing now? You're talking about intra-African. This was something that was not happening 10, 20 years ago. Are there any big trends which are striking that you can point to?
I think in terms of product,
Yes.
we have found, you know, I remember 25 years ago, we had guests who'd come to the hotel, they'd book a full board package.
Yes.
They'd spend all day on their beach bed.
Yes.
They'd go for a swim in the sea, a walk, and go back to the beach lawn and be under the sun. And the only time they got upset was when it wasn't a sunny day.
Yes.
That has changed. If you look on the safari market, you know, we used to have tourists who all they wanted to do was to see the big five. And if they did that, that was the success criteria. I think the whole trend has changed. If you look, you know, people want to have some education. They want to know a lot more about the destination. For example, we've started in our lodges cooking lessons. And our chef just comes out and does an hour's presentation. It's amazing.
People love that.
People love that. We have just put in a sample spa at Mara and a gym, and the feedback is fantastic. So that's a standard we're going to adopt in all our lodges. I think people want to do a lot more with nature, adventure. I think the days when people just went and showed photographs of the big five are gone. They want to be able to talk about the people, the culture. They want to learn a lot more about animal behavior, insect behavior. You know, I think the dinner talk now is, you know, about people being able to share knowledge rather than just photographs of the big five. So we've seen a huge change, and this is not just with the younger generation, it's also with the older generation. I think if you look at the corporate market today, you know, I think any hotel that doesn't have a good health and fitness facility
Yes.
is seriously disadvantaged. You know,
I found that when I was in Maputo, because I was put up, I wanted to stay in your hotel, which I had stayed before, and I ended up in, there's a new one, I can't remember the name of it, but it had no facility, and I was just thinking to myself, you know, why would you do that? What about niche tourism? You know, I went up to Lewa for the marathon, and I saw, you know, lots of people up there, things like fishing. Are we doing enough as a region to push this?
No, I don't think so. I think, when you think whether it's mountain climbing, whether it's camel safaris, whether it's catering to unique weddings, people want to do something out of the ordinary. And I think, for example, even our athletes, why shouldn't people be visiting where they train?
Yes.
We've had Mo Farah come out here.
Yes.
Or maybe I think people want to really go back with knowledge. And whatever we can give, and then adventure is another area, where, I know people who've come here on safari and then only discovered that they could have done Mount Kenya or Mount Kilimanjaro, and they do it on a return visit.
Yes.
I think one other serious opportunity that we are losing out on, and this is not Kenya, I'm talking about Eastern Africa, is this, the very slow progress on the EAC.
Yes. Does that impact the tourism?
Oh, it would impact. No, and also, it's the positive impact if we open up borders, we allowed open skies. You would see a real benefit for all the Eastern Africa countries. Which other region can offer you mountain climbing, beach, migration, just a straight safari, gorillas?
Have you got a gorilla property?
No, we've got a property which is about an hour and a half from the forest.
Yes.
And we accommodate a number of tourists who go for the gorilla trekking. So that to me is such a shame. I've had you can be in the Serengeti, and for you to get to Mara, you'd have to fly back from Serengeti to Arusha, to Nairobi, to Mara, which
ridiculous.
And literally, you can cross the border by foot. And I think that's where we're losing out big time. And I'm hoping that the whole integration takes place, because you look at Uganda.
Yes.
If you look at somebody saying, I'm going to do migration in Kenya, I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I'm going to be able to do gorillas in Rwanda, and I'm going to see Murchison Falls in Uganda. Now, one would say if you wanted to do it today, this would be unaffordable.
Yes.
But if we had open skies, borders were open, Southern Africa would not be a patch on East Africa. You look at the Selous, it's like, it's as good as the Okavango. Really? Oh, yes. Now, can you imagine? You do the Selous and you do gorillas. So this to me is very sad. And having been a player in East Africa, I started Tanzania from greenfield sites.
Is that right?
Yeah, I chose the sites with my chairman, Prince Amin Aga Khan, and we spent a lot of time looking at sites.
Is he very involved with you?
Oh yes, he is. His guidance is invaluable. So, and when I look at the lost opportunity, and to me, if that took place, regardless of whatever challenges we have in terms of perception of security or whatever, I think East Africa would be the destination of choice.
I'm going to end it there.
Okay, good. I hope it went well.